Okay, this is giving you some information about the project you've just got and trying to spell it out. So basically it says to you that you've got a loan that goes for 30 years and you've got super that goes for 30 years. And so you can see here that we've got the loan from when you start to the end. So theoretically you have the amount of money that you borrow for your house here, and as you go down along that, it gets down to zero, and the super goes the other way. It will build up over time. So what you're trying to find out is that after 5 years, this is a 5-year mark, so it's 5 years here, what happens is you get a bonus of $20,000. So you get a bonus after 5 years of the $20,000. Now you've got a choice of either sticking it here on the loan or sticking it here on the super after the 5 years. So you've already been going for 5 years, you get the $20,000. What do? What's the better way? Is it better to put it on the loan and get rid of your loan quicker, or is it better to put it on your super and have your super topped up more before you get there? So let's have a look at a bit of the process and let's read through the question. Everybody's question is different. So if you have here, Fred Flaberta has got he's got the $20,000 bonus like you have. Everyone's got the $20,000 bonus. And celebrating over quiet ale with a farmer pickle. His normal wage is $72,300. So you've all got those these values, but they're all different. Okay, so $72,300 is his wage. Bob was awarded his bonus 5 years after he started his loan and super. So as I said before, you're 5 years into the loan and 5 years into the super. Farmer Pickle says to use the money to prop up the super so Bob can have a comfortable retirement in 30 years' time. Bob disagrees, saying it's far better to reduce his debt in the long term, and it's a better way to go. So he has a house loan of $675,000 and thought that he would be able to put the $20,000 onto that to be that would be far better off than beating up his super. So what's the best use of his cash? So what you're trying to find out is what is better for him, to put more money into super or to pay off the loan quicker. At the end you need to have a written explanation of what you've done and talking to Bob about what is the best way to go and who's actually won this wager. So let's have a look at the steps to do. The first thing you have to do, regardless of your numbers or anything or how you're going to solve it, is to go and find the rate. So you've got to go to the internet, find some rate for super. This is going to be hard, okay, because they're hard to find a super rate, so you might just have to find a long-term investment rate. You have to find a house loan rate. You might want to get a couple of them and convert them to effective rates of interest so you can see what's going on there. You might be able to talk about that a bit better. Then you need to establish the norm, and by the norm what I mean is you need to actually be looking at what happens normally if nothing changes. So that means you work out the loan for 30 years and do the super for 30 years. Okay, so you work out your loan for 30 years as if nothing happens, and super for 30 years as if nothing happens. Now your super is done by finding 9% of your wage each month. So in my example back here, I had $72,300 was my wage. So 9% of $72,300 gives me $6,507. Whoops, $7 per year is what goes into my super. But that then is divided into months because I have monthly deposits into my super, and therefore I'll end up putting that much money. And then I set up an FV account and away I go to work out how much money I've saved. Okay, so use your wage by the super rate, because your 6,000 for me gave me 6,507 divided by 12, and away you go for your monthly deposit, and that makes it a future value annuity. Your loan is over here. You use the house loan size, so you grab the size that you've got, which is mine is what, 675. Find your rate, find your payment, find the total paid back in interest and total paid back overall, and then you've got something to compare. Okay, so then we come to this bit here and go, you would set up this for each of yours. This is my super fund. I've just put in my payment into here and I solved it and I worked out that I've got that much money. For my loan, I've done that and I've worked out that's what my payment is. From here, I'll have to find my sigma int for the whole time plus total paid back, which would be your monthly payment of 4134.17 times by 360 months. That'll give me my total I pay back. And then these big numbers here are going to be the ones that you can compare with. So they give you the numbers that you actually have to keep on looking back to each time to make sure to say which is the better option. Because if you've got nothing to compare it with, then you can't actually say who's going to win the bet. Okay, so that means that in total, that this is how much I'll be paying back on my house loan, and that's how much my super is. So these are the two numbers that I'm going to be using as my references later on down the track. So what do? So the loan, once again, find the total that you pay back and the total interest paid, and that's using your amortization button. Super, how much do you have? These are our baseline. This is our baseline to be able to say we have to beat that to be better off. Then you grab the 20,000 and you either put it into to pump up your super or save money on the loan. It's up to you how you do it. So you've got to work out which is the better way and the better structure. But there's a couple of things that everyone needs to do, because otherwise you won't be able to work it out. So for the loan, you have to find the balance after 5 years. Then you put the lump sum in of the $20,000 after that time to reduce whatever your balance is. Then finish the calculations off and then find the difference at the end. Okay, so this is a lump sum payment. This is a lump sum payment. So find the balance after 5 years, reduce that balance by 20,000, that becomes your PV, and then you go through and solve it to the end and you work out how much you pay back and how much you get in sigma int. Okay, or you might want to say, okay, I won't do that, I might add a little each month to the payment. I'll divide the $20,000 over the rest of the years and see if that makes any difference. Or you might invest it and put it later. There's heaps more ways of doing this. There's heaps of different things you can do. You could pay the loan off quickly and then use that money left over to top up your super, all those kind of things. It's up to you to work out how to do it. Okay? Now for the super, you've got to find the balance after the 5 years, add the lump sum to that, which will now make your PV bigger. Then you add regular, and then you recalculate again. So you find the balance, add this onto whatever the balance is, that becomes your PV, and then you start rolling again to work out what your future value is going to be. So it's like one of those ones we did earlier on. So finding the balance and adding it on. Or you might want to do the same thing, put regular chunks on over the rest of the time there, over the 25 years, put extra bit of money every month. Or you might invest it at a later date. So instead of investing at 5 years, could you do it at 10 years? And this probably applies to the loan as well. You might say, okay, after 5 years I'm going to put in the $20,000, see what happens, and then I'll compare it to putting in at 10 years. Don't do too many of them. Okay, so otherwise it gets too hard to be able to kind of do your conclusions at the end. So in the end, your conclusion is, I would say put your findings in a table. So you'd have a table that shows me all you've done and what ones are better, so you can read it easily off of here. Summarize what you found, just write that out. Analyze the result. Tell me what's worked better and why. Okay, you might find that putting a lump sum in at 5 years is the best way to go. But explain to me mathematically why that is the reason. Okay, what advice would you give to Bob and Farmer Pickle? So you might be talking about, maybe you pay your house off first and then top up your super, or maybe you just let your house triple up, make your super better, whatever. You have to have your final advice about what way you could do, what way you would go, and then look at the assumptions and limitations. So things like, you're assuming that the rate stays the same all the time, you're assuming that he keeps his wage going, you're assuming that he doesn't get another bonus and put it in later on. So there's all these assumptions that you need to put in there, and then tell me what that assumption does to the end. So if your assumption is that the rates stay the same, in real life, what that would mean is that your repayments would always be the same. But if the rates go up or down, you might be paying more or paying less depending on what's going on. Okay, so that's basically the project. It's fairly tasky. You can work out the depth you need to go into, but some of those things there are probably just the basics you need to have there.